Hi, I'm Andy Miocha and you are watching A News. Here are the headlines. Iran and Israel launch more attacks as Donald Trump weighs U.S. involvement in the conflict. Vladimir Putin cautions Germany over missile supplies to Ukraine. Presidents of Turkey and Azerbaijan attend opening ceremony of Azerbaijan neighbourhood in Kahramanmaraş, the area affected by the February 2023 earthquakes. Thank you for tuning in. It's day 7 of the Israeli-Iranian conflict. As the missile fire exchanges continue, there is still no word from Washington whether the U.S. will join Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. Multiple U.S. outlets reported that President Donald Trump has approved attack plans, but hasn't made a final decision.
It's reported that U.S. President Donald Trump has approved military plans to strike Iran, but has held off on giving the final order, according to CBS News and the Wall Street Journal. U.S. officials reportedly say Trump paused the decision in hopes that Iran might still agree to abandon its nuclear program, as Tehran denies having the capability of creating nuclear weapons. Publicly, Trump has echoed some uncertainty and hesitancy, and he says he could leave his decision to the last minute.
I have ideas as to what to do, but I haven't made a final. I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change. I mean, especially with war. Things change with war. It can go from one extreme to the other.
He added that Iran should have made a deal and posted online that U.S. patience is wearing thin. At a Senate hearing, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said American forces are prepared to carry out any order given by the president and confirmed that additional assets, including 2 aircraft carrier groups, are being moved into the region. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, responded in a televised speech, calling any U.S. military action dangerous and saying the Iranian nation will not surrender. Following the speech, hundreds of Iranians were seen carrying their national flags out on the streets of Tehran Wednesday night, while Reuters reported traffic jams as thousands tried to leave the capital city.
Iran has called for another emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. Tehran wants Israel to be recognized as the attacker and for other countries not to get involved in the conflict. Our Tura Shiralilu has all the details in Tehran.
According to the state IRNA news agency, following Iran's call for the second emergency meeting and the support of China, Russia, Pakistan, and Algeria, the UN Security Council will convene again on Friday in New York. In addition to demanding recognition of Israel as the aggressor, Iran's mission at the UN headquarters called for termination of the violation of the UN Charter by Israel, as well as prevention of involvement of the third parties in the ongoing conflict. On Wednesday, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei warned of severe consequences over involvement of the United States in the war. In a second televised message after Israel's attack since Friday, he rejected the U.S. President Donald Trump's demand of Iran's unconditional surrender in its nuclear program and to cease enrichment. Tehran's barrage of tit-for-tat attacks by firing ballistic missiles and suicide drones in response to Israel's massive aerial invasion has entered the 7th day with a noticeable drop in intensity and frequency of the attacks. Today, Iran's top diplomat, Abbas Araghchi, in a message on his X account, stressed Tehran's right to self-defense and said that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu launched this war to destroy diplomacy, saying that Iran has never sought nuclear weapons and will not do so. Araghchi denied media reports that he led a delegation to Oman for talks with the United States. Also, Iran's mission at the UN has rejected Mr. Trump's statements on a proposal by Tehran to talk at the White House. Tura Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says he will head to Geneva to attend talks tomorrow on his country's nuclear program with counterparts from France, Germany, and Britain. The last meeting between Iran and the three European signatories of the original nuclear deal Tehran struck with world powers in 2015 was held in January, shortly before Trump assumed office. Subsequent indirect US-Iran talks mediated by Oman failed to yield results, with the sixth planned round cancelled after the Israeli military strikes on Iran. Ahead of the Geneva talks, British Foreign Minister is set to meet US Secretary of State in Washington. As the conflict shows no signs of ending, Iran has so far officially reported that at least 224 people were killed, but independent monitors say the real toll is much higher.
The fighting between Israel and Iran has continued for a full week now. While Iranian officials confirm around 224 deaths, the human rights activist news agency reports that since the strikes began just after midnight on June 13th, more than 600 people have died and over 1,300 have been injured, bringing the overall casualty count close to 2,000. In the capital Tehran, strikes hit Iran's national police headquarters and the state TV building. Footage from earlier this week shows a news anchor running for safety during a live broadcast. The newsroom was left in ruins, with shattered equipment and debris covering the floors. Israel claims the facility was also being used for military communications. Eyewitness video from Tehran also shows smoke rising near the headquarters of the Iranian Red Crescent, one of the country's main emergency response agencies. Israel has expanded its campaign to nuclear targets, claiming strikes on key sites in Iraq, Natanz, Isfahan, and Bushehr. Satellite and drone footage show damage at the Kondab heavy water reactor near Iraq. The IAEA confirms the site was hit, but says it wasn't operational and held no nuclear material, meaning there was no radiation risk. Iranian media reported air defense systems were activated near Kondab overnight. 2 projectiles landed nearby, but so far no confirmed damage to the reactor itself.
Tel Aviv has been rocked by air raid sirens and explosions, with the Israeli military reporting a launch of some 30 ballistic missiles. Our Trent Murray has more on the ground.
Well, it was just after 7 a.m. local time that those air raid sirens sounded here in Tel Aviv, followed by several loud explosions across the city. Some of those explosions coming from interceptions, but we are also seeing a number of impacts. The Israeli Defense Force is saying around 30 ballistic missiles were fired at once. Those impacts include suburbs here in Tel Aviv, where once again we have seen residential buildings and also some office blocks be damaged. And we're also, of course, tracking a fairly significant strike in the south of Israel. Now, this is in the city of Beersheba, where the country's largest hospital in its southern region exists. That hospital taking a direct impact from a missile. Now, remarkably, what the hospital is saying is that there are no casualties reported, because it was just yesterday that they decided to evacuate the surgical ward of the facility amid the war, a decision which seemingly now has saved many lives, because it was that part of the building which took the most impact. We are also being told that amid this barrage was a new type of weapon that the Iranians have not deployed yet in this war. It's effectively a type of cluster bomb, a rocket which has around 20 smaller warheads in it, which will disperse over an area of around 20 kilometres. The IDF says it's investigating this, but they have now confirmed that that type of cluster munition was used amid this attack. We also know, of course, as you might imagine, the rhetoric from the Israelis in response to this is that they are going to continue to launch their attacks across Iran's military infrastructure. Even the defence minister, Israel Katz, has said now that the Ayatollah of Iran can no longer exist. Trent Murray for A News, Tel Aviv.
Iran's latest missile attack on Israel has caused widespread damage and resulted in dozens of casualties across several cities, according to local officials.
Iranian missiles struck multiple Israeli cities early Thursday, triggering air raid sirens from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. In Ramat Gan, a city in the Tel Aviv district, High-rise buildings and vehicles were severely damaged. Emergency responders reported at least 25 casualties.
It was like an airplane going above us with a big echo and a big whistle, and then we heard the boom. The boom was like from 1 to 100, it was 100. It was like a tsunami above us. The door of the shelter opened. The dog ran away from the fear.
Nearby in Holon residential buildings were also damaged, with rescue teams and emergency services deployed to the scene. Sirens also echoed across Jerusalem, where missile trails lit up the sky and explosions were heard in several neighborhoods. In southern Israel, Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba sustained a direct hit. The hospital director confirmed that fire broke out and several wards were demolished. 40 people were injured.
The people we have left in the hospital are elderly people, cancer patients, people who need urgent medical care. They cannot go home. And these people were targeted directly to be killed by a missile attack. There is no other explanation for this, and it's shocking that such a thing would take place.
Iran's state news agency, IRNA, reported that the missiles were aimed at Israeli army and intelligence headquarters located near Soroka Hospital, and said the resulting blast wave led to injuries at the site. Elsewhere, missile fragments landed in the West Bank settlement of Ariel. Israel's emergency services report at least 65 injured across the country, including 3 in critical condition. According to Israeli authorities, 24 people have been killed and hundreds injured since the missile exchanges began.
On the latest surrounding the conflict, we're talking with Mel Deage, researcher at the Cappadocia University, coming to us from Ankara. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, we are yet to hear the final say from the White House, but reportedly Trump approved attack plans. Do you believe that those include hitting the Fordo site, as it's widely believed Israel cannot do that on its own, as it's a deep underground facility?
Yes, thank you for giving this platform again. And yes, these attacks and the plans for these attacks are still continuing. And I think Israel's capacity somehow limited, as they understood now. With the capacity of Iran, of course, we can equalize maybe the capacity of Iran and Israel now on the field, because same missiles, of course, same tactics, maybe same, of course, intelligence advantages they have inside their soils. And unfortunately, the casualties, also civilian casualties, now increasing. Now, Mr. Trump turned to be a key personality again in the diplomatic field, maybe in the military sense also. We hope that Mr. Trump will still continue on the path of diplomacy, because he changed his mind in one day and the other day, and we cannot maybe follow so easily what he will really decide on this very critical issue in our region, in a very near region, especially in Turkey. As you also may remember, our President Erdogan said important things about the issue. But now, I think the Fordo and the other nuclear capacities of Iran, they are all kept nearly in a very secure position inside the very vast land of Iran. And Israel definitely needs this help or this support from the United States. But I think today, Mr. Putin and Russia gave another signal from another, of course, pole of this world politics. And he said that already that they're also there. I mean, some experts, some Russian, forces, we don't know. I think some nuclear experts. I think the issue or the crisis turns to be much more interesting in the coming days.
Well, with or without U.S. military involvement, we've heard the Israeli defense chief today saying that Iran's supreme leader, quote, cannot be allowed to exist following a strike on an Israeli hospital. Could such statements and such rhetoric escalate things further and draw other factions and Iranian-backed groups across the region into the conflict?
Of course, it increased. The, of course, words, the style of saying some things, diplomatically or undiplomatically, we must be really careful about the situation now. I think the leaders, they really must behave much more responsibly. We can understand that in such a conflictual environment, everyone can be somehow hesitant to be diplomatic because they want to give their also to their public opinion, to their internal policy that they are so strong. But to say that, I mean, a leader, I mean, that whether it is Iranian, whether it's Israeli, they must be killed, they must be not in this world anymore. Such words, I think they cannot give any hope for a very peaceful environment for this near future. I think, first of all, Israeli wants this help from this diplomatic style of maybe United States. And I hope that Mr. Trump's ideas and his style of his thinking will change suddenly. But this hospital thing is very interesting because we must not forget again. This issue is not started just 5 or 6 days ago. This issue started just 2 years ago with the Palestinian case. And I think many hospitals have been already destroyed in the soil of Palestine. Now, maybe Iran intentionally or unintentionally wanted to give the signal to in the Israel territory. Of course, it is unacceptable to bomb such civilian areas, but we must not again forget these civilian areas were already so heavily destroyed in this region.
Talks are set tomorrow in Geneva, where the Iranian foreign minister is expected to meet the British, German, and French counterparts. There are some reports that the entire meeting is being coordinated with Washington. Is there a glimmer of hope that diplomacy might prevail?
Also, with the inclusion of European Union, with the inclusion of this liberal, but liberalism in a sense, I mean, really caring about humans, really caring about human life, whether they are in Israel, whether they are in Iran, whether they are in other parts of our region, Europe or European leaders, first of all, must think this value of human life. Some leaders, unfortunately, are really declaring some, I don't know, very interesting words in these last days. I don't want to give the name, but still, it is very surprising to hear such word from the new Chancellor and the new Prime Minister of Germany, who is Friedrich Merz, and said that this dirty word thing. We cannot accept, of course, in international politics, such words. We cannot accept from a European leader, from a responsible or liberal democratic leader, such words that one state is doing some dirty words in one country. I mean, it really causes some hindrance or some very important obstacle in such negotiation processes. I think France or Britain, I think they will have much more responsible attitude, diplomatic attitude. And as you said, with the support of this United States ideology, I mean, we must accept that United States and Israel, they are really having important alliance on the ground. I think we will have much more diplomatic days, and we hope so in these coming weeks.
Well, Meli, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with your insight and opinions. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned Germany that Moscow would consider it to be directly involved in the war in Ukraine if Berlin supplied Kiev with Taurus cruise missiles. Putin said that to fire the Taurus missiles, Ukraine would need Western satellite intelligence and German officers to take care of targeting, which, if they were fired at Russia, would mean German officers striking Russian territory. Putin, however, also said he was ready to speak to German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Finland's parliament has voted to withdraw from the international treaty banning anti-personnel landmines. Finnish President Alexander Stubb defended the move, describing neighboring Russia as an aggressive state that uses landmines ruthlessly. Helsinki will be able to begin stockpiling landmines 6 months after formally notifying the United Nations. Before Finland, NATO and EU members Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia and Poland also took steps to abandon the treaty. NATO leaders are set to agree on a new defense spending target at the upcoming summit of the alliance next week in The Hague. Some analysts say that the sticking point might be the timeline of the new target's implementation.
NATO leaders are poised to adopt a new defence spending goal of 5% of GDP at the summit in The Hague. A move, analysts say, would mark a major diplomatic win for US President Donald Trump and reaffirm the alliance's unity. The proposed target includes 3.5% for core military spending and an additional 1.5% for infrastructure, cyber defence and industry investments.
And it is a summit that reinforces NATO's credibility, its leadership and unity. It will be very much focused on 5% target, and that will be the most relevant to say right now, that it will be the focus of the discussion and also the outcome of the NATO summit at The Hague.
Trump, who has long criticised allies for underspending on defence, is expected to welcome the agreement as a personal victory.
Well, I think NATO should have 5%, yeah. Well, you can't do it at 2%. I mean, at 2%, every country, if you're going to have a country in a regular military, you're at 4%.
However, experts caution that the effectiveness of the pledge depends on the timeline for implementation.
The test of the target will be the timeline. If the implication timeline is actually given at the summit, because there are different perceptions of what it could be. Is it 2032, 2030, 2035? Depending on which member states spends how much on the defense spending, they have different perceptions of how and when they can achieve 5%.
The summit communique is expected to be brief to minimize the risk of internal disagreements. It will aim to highlight NATO's commitment to increase defense investment and alliance solidarity.
A new residential neighborhood funded by Azerbaijan has opened in Kahramanmaraş, southern Turkey. It includes housing, a school, a kindergarten, and a cultural center. Katie Wilson reports from the site.
Hello, I'm joining you from a very scorching Kahramanmaraş. It's been almost 40 degrees all day here today, but that hasn't stopped local residents from turning out to the opening ceremony of the new residential neighbourhood called Azerbaijan. Now, Kahramanmaraş is a name I'm sure you're familiar with, as it was one of the worst affected cities in the earthquake that hit southeastern Turkey in northern Syria 2.5 years ago. Just a reminder of how destructive and devastating that earthquake was. It was one of the most deadly in modern Turkish history. It killed over 55,000 people, injured over 107,000 others, and reduced entire towns to rubble.
We are always by each other's side in good times and difficult times. We multiply each other's strength. Today, the Turkey-Azerbaijan brotherhood and unity are an important factor, not only for our region, but also on a global scale. They are a symbol of security, cooperation, development, and brotherhood. I express the respect and love of the Azerbaijani people to all the people living in the earthquake-affected areas. You know and should know that you have 10 million brothers and sisters in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijanis also know that we have more than 80 million brothers and sisters in Turkey.
This is about the future and about the reconstruction of Kahramanmaraş. The neighbourhood of Azerbaijan has been built using $100 million worth of Azerbaijani aid. It includes not only residential homes, but a primary school named Heydar Aliyev, a kindergarten and a cultural centre. Now, President Ilham Aliyev and Recep Tayyip Erdogan have attended this opening ceremony, and they arrived together, which I think wasn't an accident. I think that's symbolic of the brotherhood.
I would like to express with great pleasure that under the leadership of Mr. Ilham Aliyev, this extended hand of brotherhood has left its mark on the heart of Kahramanmaraş. In every step taken and every nail driven here, whether in Anatolia or in Azerbaijan, there is the sweat, sincerity and prayer of the Turk.
Between these two countries, that is often talked about, and Both presidents got a massive cheer from the audience here, and they've thanked Azerbaijan for this neighbourhood. And of course, this isn't just about that short-term immediate humanitarian aid following a natural disaster. It's about that long-term investment in the future of Kahramanmaraş.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is set to host Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinan in Istanbul on Friday, according to the Turkish presidential spokesman. While the exact agenda remains undisclosed, both sides say a joint statement will be issued after the meeting. Foreign ministers from 57 member states of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation are set to meet in Istanbul on Saturday and Sunday for an emergency session on the Israeli-Iranian conflict. According to a Turkish Foreign Ministry source cited by Reuters, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is expected to attend. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is expected to open the summit with a call for Muslim unity in response to what the ministry described as Israel's destabilizing acts. Georgia's Prime Minister met with an official of the Saudi Arabian Development Fund for talks on investments in energy and infrastructure. Our Nini Nikolaishvili brings more from Tbilisi.
Georgia is seeking to strengthen economic ties with Saudi Arabia. Prime Minister Irakli Qobakhidze met with the Executive Director of Saudi Arabian Development Fund during an official visit in Tbilisi. The meeting focused on enhancing bilateral cooperation. According to the Georgian government, particular attention was given to Georgia's ongoing positive economic trajectory and the country's investment potential, especially in sectors such as energy, port and road infrastructure, and the airport's development. This meeting was a part of Georgia's wider strategy to attract foreign capital and promote Georgia as a key regional logistics and energy hub. But not everyone considers this as purely strategic. Political analyst Georgian Chadlishvili told to A News, "This outreach reflects Georgia's strained ties with the West and the government's shift in political trajectory. Now they're seeking for partners who won't question their internal directions." Georgia and Saudi Arabia have deepened their economic cooperation over the past year, signing an intergovernmental coordination agreement in early 2024 and hosting the joint investment forums in February and October. Today's meeting is the latest step in deliberate push to build stronger economic links and perhaps political alternatives. This is Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
Russia wants to expand energy cooperation with Kazakhstan. Moscow says the two countries are also discussing joint access to third markets. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has the details.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has confirmed Moscow's interest in expanding energy cooperation with Kazakhstan. During a meeting with heads of international news agencies, he emphasized that the countries are discussing not only domestic cooperation, but also joint access to third country markets, particularly in the oil and gas sectors. Special attention is being given to logistics issues, especially the organization of export routes for Kazakh oil abroad. While specific destinations haven't yet been named, it's known that currently 80% of Kazakhstan's oil is shipped to Europe, including Germany, Italy, France, and other countries. The main route is the Caspian pipeline, which passes through Russian territory. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, analysts say Moscow has increasingly used the Caspian pipeline as a tool for political pressure. Deliveries of Kazakh oil have been repeatedly restricted, forcing Astana to look for alternative routes. However, despite these challenges, Kazakhstan has relied on this infrastructure for over 20 years. It's important also to note that since the war began, Russia has partially or fully suspended operations of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium 6 times. In February, the CPC facility was even struck by Ukrainian drones. Kyiv confirmed the attack and warned that similar actions could continue. Experts emphasize that despite these geopolitical risks, the Caspian pipeline remains the most economically effective route for Kazakhstan. It continues to be a reliable and cost-efficient method for oil transport. Kazakhstan is also bound by long-term contracts with several Russian companies, limiting its ability to quickly switch to alternative export routes. Nearly all of its oil production is already contracted, making rapid increases in output extremely difficult. Fariza Kalimurzana, A News, in Astana, Kazakhstan.
A heat wave has gripped Bishkek and surrounding regions in Kyrgyzstan. Power infrastructure is under strain and lawmakers are demanding answers after parts of the capital lost power. Our Fikret Doluhanov has more.
Mid-June, Bishkek, 40 degrees Celsius scorching heat. Locals say this kind of weather usually hits in late July or early August. Not now, not this early. This is the latest reminder that Kyrgyzstan, like much of Central Asia, is facing the harsh realities of climate change. And this week, the heat has not only made life unbearable, it has exposed how vulnerable we are. Just imagine air conditioning units running non-stop, pumps pushing water into homes and factories around the clock. And the pressure on infrastructure is mounting. On Wednesday, Bishkek and parts of Chu province suffered a partial blackout. Today, some areas of the city have also faced planned power shutdowns. Officials, though, insist the incident wasn't caused by overload. Deputy Energy Minister Nasibek Kerimov says automatic protection systems triggered a cascade shutdown, briefly cutting electricity to much of the city. But it happened at the worst possible moment, during peak heat, with citizens relying on every cooling option available. In parliament, MPs weren't so impressed, though. Dastan Bekeshev, one of the MPs, says lawmakers had to vote in darkness. He called it a sign of crisis and demanded an explanation from the Energy Ministry. Later, the national grid operator said it was actually linked to plant maintenance, a temporary drop in line capacity during routine preparations for the winter season. But the incident has raised broader concerns about the impact of climate change. According to scientists, Central Asia is warming faster than the global average. Heat waves are becoming more and more frequent, more intense and harder to predict. And for a region dependent on glacial melt and hydropower, the challenge is immense. Fikret Dolkhanov, Javid Aliyev, A News, Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan.
Startups, investors and tech leaders have gathered in Baku for one of the region's largest innovation events. The two-day summit, known as Baku ID, aims to connect ideas with investment and promote the South Caucasus as an emerging tech hub.
Once defined by oil, Baku is now shining the spotlight on startups and new ideas. Behind me are entrepreneurs, students, investors, and business leaders who are hoping to hear ideas and pitch ideas. Interestingly, the myriad of people here are including those in fintech, games, green energy, as well as much more. This might be from Baku, but it's almost certainly for the world. Baku ID is an annual startup and innovation forum in the capital of Azerbaijan. Organisers say the focus is to provide opportunities for emerging local and regional startups.
The number one purpose is to become a platform for startups from Azerbaijan, but also from the wider region, to pitch, to showcase their ideas, and to, most importantly, to fundraise, to be able to survive and to fight the next day, right? The corporates are here, the government is here, academia is here, and not only from Azerbaijan. We understand very well that building an ecosystem here cannot be only local. We need to integrate better with the region.
The Azerbaijani government was also represented at the event, signalling its continued support for the country's growing tech sector. Officials voiced public backing for the startup ecosystem.
Today's event, Baku ID, is one of the prominent events in terms of bringing together startups, investors together for discussion and for networking and for building the relationships that will last for a long time. And as the Ministry of Science and Education, we're ready to support the event through bringing together the platforms that we have.
Alongside showcasing promising startup ideas, this year's event also addresses the question of how to build an economy less dependent on oil and gas.
The Azerbaijani government, seeing the future, already decided several years ago that it needs to transition from gas and oil towards technology. Baku or Sabah Hub and Baku ID is one of the activities showing this capability, and this is a transition that we are now under. We are moving towards technology.
Tech blogger Farid says the event showcases the growing confidence and creativity of the regional startup scene.
Hosting such a regional event in our country can help revitalise the local ecosystem, encourage the emergence of new startups, and strengthen the startup movement. The insights shared by international experts and speakers during the event often inspire participants with new ideas.
Baku ID is drawing the region together, bringing new ideas and new people into one place, becoming a hub for innovation and collaboration across the South Caucasus.
Baku is gearing up to host its first ever UFC Fight Night. This makes Azerbaijan the 31st nation to host a UFC card.
Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, is set to host its first ever UFC Fight Night on Saturday, June 21st. As a premier global mixed martial arts organization with a significant international fan base, the Ultimate Fighting Championship's arrival has drawn considerable attention, with people already gathering in anticipation for the event. A press conference for UFC Fight Night Baku was recently held, where participating fighters and event officials addressed the media. Discussions covered fight strategies and the significance of this event in the city. Fighters present commented on the local environment and the forthcoming competition. They acknowledged the event's organization and Azerbaijan's role as host. Preparations continue as fighters finalize their training. An open training session allowed fans to observe the athletes' routines and gain insight into their fight preparation. American fighter Belal Muhammad and Georgian champion Merab Dvalishvili are among the prominent UFC figures present in Baku for the historic event, both praising the host city and its enthusiastic fans.
Congratulations to Azerbaijan and good job, and whoever did this, whoever make this one happen, it's a government or the people who was working to bring Azerbaijan UFC in Azerbaijan, because we Georgians, we were trying to do, but it's very hard to do it, So hopefully my country will be next to bring UFC in Georgia, but enjoy, guys. You will have lots of good fights, and
it's been amazing. It's been beautiful. Everybody is so nice. The people are really cool. Like, they love the UFC. They love fighting. They're excited about it. So it makes me excited about it. They've all taken us with open arms. So happy about that. Happy about the food. The food has been so good. The sights, the weather has been great. Man, I love it. It's my first time coming here. And it's always one of those where you always heard about it, and it was far away. So I was like, all right, the UFC's going. I want to be a guest fighter here. So I'm excited. I came as a guest fighter, and I cannot wait for Saturday. Saturday's going to be an amazing night.
3 Azerbaijani fighters are scheduled to compete on the fight card. Rafael Fiziev, a lightweight contender, is set to return to action. Tofik Musayev will make his UFC debut, and Nazim Sadikov aims to extend his professional record. The UFC Fight Night, featuring a main event between Jamahal Hill and Khalil Roundtree Jr., will take place at the Baku Crystal Hall, marking Baku's debut as a venue for UFC events.
Azerbaijan's Gabala has become the second destination in the country on the WIZ network, with the establishment of a direct flight to Abu Dhabi. The newly launched connection is expected to boost the number of visitors from Gulf countries.
A new international flight connection is set to boost tourism and regional cooperation in Azerbaijan. The first ever direct flights from Abu Dhabi to Gabala has officially launched, operated by Wizz Air Abu Dhabi. This initiative is supported by the Gabala District Executive Authority, Gabala International Airport, and the Azerbaijan Tourism Bureau. Gabala has officially joined the international air travel map with the launch of a new direct flight route to Abu Dhabi, operated by Wizz Air Abu Dhabi. The new connection is expected to significantly boost many visitors from the Gulf region, making Gabala more accessible than ever. Known for its natural beauty, historical sites, and the popular mountain resort destination Tufandagh, Gabala now has the chance to showcase its rich cultural and tourism potential to a broader international audience.
We arrived with almost 200 passengers on board today. The departing flight is also filling very nicely for the very first flight. We are thrilled to see that people of Azerbaijan will have now a direct link from Gabala to experience the wonderful cultural heritage of Abu Dhabi. And at the same time, the residents of the UAE and Abu Dhabi will have finally a chance to come and within a 3-hour flight to see a lot of green landscapes, to explore the ski resorts of the region, to explore the nature that is very, very popular and very demanded for the UAE residents. We do have big plans on Azerbaijan. As you know, until now we were flying only Baku. Baku is a very demanded route and it was very popular. We operate 2, sometimes even 3 times per day. So we saw that there's definitely a need and a very growing tourism and business link between the two countries. This is why today we launched our second airport, Gabala, and we are in continuous negotiations with other airports in the country to see where we can expand further. And at the same time, we will also see, as I mentioned, how we can further expand the operations into Gabala. We start with 3 flights, but we will see how to further expand it later on.
Therefore, both we and the Air Force believe that this project will be successful. The Air Force operates its fleet with Airbus A320 and A321 Neo aircraft. There are many types of aircraft in operation, including models such as the A220 and A230. The first flights have been launched on the Gabala-Abu Dhabi route. For Gabala, this is an important step in developing Azerbaijan's chemical and geological region. It also creates new opportunities to boost tourism potential in the region and across the country. We also operate other airports as part of our network, and we will continue working to expand and develop this network.
Visitors coming from Abu Dhabi have already begun arriving in Gabala through Wizz Air Abu Dhabi, marking the start of a new chapter in international tourism for the region. Officials say the flight will not only attract more tourists, but also support regional economic growth, create jobs, and deepen cross-border cooperation.
Gabala International Airport as the regional hub, as a gateway for the touristic development of northwestern region of Azerbaijan. Our regions such as Gabala, Shamakh Ismail, Sheki Oghuz, Kakh Zagatala, all are rich with their culture, nature, and our unique hospitality that will bring best experience for our visitors all over the world. And I'm sure this flight will be just the start, and we will be having more and more of routes connecting Gabala with the world.
With this move, Gabala is set to become a key destination in Azerbaijan's expanding tourism landscape.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching, and do stay tuned to A News.